In this video, I'm going to tell you what I think about the General's Handbook. The Warhammer Age of Sigmar General's Handbook came out like last week. I picked mine up on the weekend from my friendly local game store. And it's $25 retail, and it's perfect bound. That's what they call it when it's got a floppy cover like this, but it comes with this square kind of edge. That's perfect bound. If it was like a big giant staple or something like that, that's called saddle stitch, in case you cared. Anyway, full color all throughout. I don't know how many pages, 170-ish. And as you've already heard, it comes with 3 main sections. It comes with the open play section, which is new information for open play. It comes with the kind of narrative/campaign section, which gives you a lot of new options and things like that we've never really had before. There was nothing in the original 4-page rules book about booklet, package, sheet, whatever, about narrative campaign play, anything along those lines. And then, of course, there's the, by certain people, much sought after points section. So I've gone through it quite a bit. Lovely photography, lovely artwork. Mostly photography, honestly. I get the feeling that it is probably cheaper for them to do like some of these like really big, like huge images of, sometimes in some of these situations, hundreds of models. It's probably quicker, or at least cheaper maybe, for them to put all these things together and to shoot them than it is to contract an artist to do a piece of artwork for 4 different things on just this spread alone. Like here, there's probably a couple hundred models in there. It's a lot of skeletons, let's just say that. So my point is that it's a beautiful looking book. Nobody should dispute that Games Workshop doesn't know how to make a beautiful looking book. They do, great work. I went through a bunch of it. I went through the open play stuff because I'm kind of a big dork for that stuff. I like the no points. And what they've done in there is they've added in a bunch of extra, basically scenarios and things like that. They added in the ability for multiplayer, which when I first heard it, I thought, but the game is multiplayer because there's 2 of us. But I'm thinking of video games where there's a single player and a multiplayer. In this, what the rules are is it's like, this is how you play with more than 2 players. Whether you play with team games, they gave you information on how to do that. They gave you information on how to play just a big free-for-all. You got 5 people and they all bring some forces, great, knock yourself out. The second section is called narrative play, and it's all about obviously kind of telling a story with your games, or a series of games, which in many situations people refer to as campaign games, because it's like this game and then the results from that affect the next one and the next one and the next one. It's a really interesting way to play, and there's a lot of games out there, obviously. Mordheim, Frostgrave, Necromunda, all the other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head. Lots of games have been doing it for a long time, and a lot of people who are not super into tournaments are super into campaign play because it's, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think that for me, it reminds me a little bit of like back when I was in 5th grade playing Dungeons and Dragons and going through all that stuff. And further on, it wasn't like I just played when I was in 5th grade. I played for years and years and that kind of stuff. But this sort of thing gives you the ability to kind of do a little bit of that, personalize your miniatures. Personalize, and you really get these kind of storylines going on behind them, especially when you're telling a linked campaign narrative through your play. It's great to see that they're doing stuff like that. Again, a bunch of scenarios in here, battle plans as they like to call them. And I can't wait to start working with some of my friends to kind of build some of these linked narrative campaigns and work with some of the stuff out of this book. So I think that's going to be really cool. Now, the section that is probably the most controversial, and also that I have not looked into as much as I should. There's this kind of one sort of sticking point that I haven't quite figured out yet, but I'll get into it. The points. Matched play, as it's referred to in the book. So in matched play, it talks about how to play games where you're matched. You have a force of 1,000 points, I have a force of 1,000 points, and we play. They kind of lay it out as this. They say you can play 1,000-point games, 2,000-point games, 3,000-point games. Now again, those are suggestions. Pretty much everything that you come across in this book, which I really appreciate, they're always like, well, you can do it this way. It's optional. You can use this part or just this part or both parts or whatever you want. Early on in the book, they're really like, use this as a guide, do what you want, have a good time. And I appreciate that. I think it's good that they do that in a book like this because it still gives you the ability to play any different way you want. I know, myself included, a lot of the people who are, pro no points, if that even is a thing, were thinking, I don't know, man, bringing points in is going to be problematic. And to some degree, that still may be the case. You may have people that just don't want to play unless you're playing points. And if you don't want to play points, well, you're going to have some issues. But generally, I think hopefully either you'll be able to compromise or you'll be able to, find other people to play with or whatever the deal is, because there's a lot to this book. And maybe you and your friend, he wants to do points and you want to do no points, but maybe you guys can even just compromise and go, well, what if we do a campaign, narrative play? There's a lot of different options. That all being said, the points section in here is pretty robust. Initially, I thought that there were certain figures that were left out. An opponent of mine that I play quite frequently, he goes Chaos Trolls. And I went through the entire Chaos section and I couldn't find the Chaos Trolls. And I thought, well, maybe that's just because they're kind of overpowered. Even with no points, I feel like they're a little overpowered. As it turns out, the reason that they didn't show up in the Chaos section is because they showed up in what's known as the Compendium section. Compendium seems to be kind of, it's just kind of where extra stuff sort of ends up, which that's what I haven't been able to figure out yet. Like, they have a section for order, a section for chaos, a section for death, and a section for destruction. And then they have this compendium, which starts off with Beastmen, which in my mind would be chaos, but it's not the Beastmen, it's just specific named Beastmen. Gorus Warhoof, Gorthor the Beast Lord, Kazrak the One-Eye, that kind of stuff. And in that section, this compendium section, there is some Skavens, there's some orcs and goblins, and at some point there are warriors of chaos. So I don't know what the compendium is. I don't know if these have been things that have been taken out. You're not supposed to use them in tournament play. I haven't been able to figure that part out. Like I said, I haven't dug as deeply into the points section of the book as I have the other two sections, which I've looked over quite a bit. Here's a picture of a warband that I used at my local shop a while back. This was off of my Instagram. It consists of, hang on a second here. It consists of 10 Beastmen, 10 Chaos Warriors, 5 Putrid Blight Kings, Gutrot Spume, Lord Plagues, a.k.a. Lord Drippy, the Rotbringer Sorcerer, who my personal Rotbringer Sorcerer has done some really nice work in the last couple of games. I got to come up with a specific personalized name for him. Let's see here. Who else is in there? 3 Varengard, and a Demon Prince. That whole group put together, I looked up in the points, comes to 1,280 points. Now, the one issue that I see with points and the way that they're doing it in this book, for those of you who've been playing for a long time, playing other games like 40K or whatever, like in 40K, they'd say you got to have a minimum of, let's say, 5 guys in this group, but they cost this much each. So if you brought 7, let's say they cost 10 points each, minimum would be 50, but if you brought 7 of them, it'd be 70. Not so here in the point section for the General's Handbook. Minimum, let's say just, my goat people, the Gores, as I like to call them, the goat people, they come as a minimum unit size of 10, and that costs 80 points. Okay, makes sense. Well, you pay in multiples. So if I was to bring 12, I would have to pay for the next 10. So 80 points gets me 10. If I bring 2 more, because I happen to have the models, if I want to field them, I have to pay for up to the next 10, which would be another 80 points. So 10 of them costs 80, and 12 of them, or 13 of them, or 14 of them, or 15 of them, etc., until you hit 20, costs another 80, which that's 160 points. Now, obviously they're 8 points apiece, because it's 80 points for 10 of them. So I don't know why you can't just say that they cost this much each, but you can't. The rules show, and there's even a little call-out box that says, hey, by the way, this is how it works, which I applaud Games Workshop for, writing some rules and saying, hey, there's this thing that's a little ambiguous, and we're going to tell you exactly so it's not ambiguous, because in previous rules, as many of you veterans know, that was never the case. So it's interesting to me that, and I don't know if it's just a sales technique to get you to buy more models, but setting up these 1,000 point, 2,000 point, 3,000 point battles is going to be tough because there's going to be times like I've got a 1280 list, right, with my guys that were in that picture. I can take out the Demon Prince for 160, and I could take out, I don't know, something else. Maybe I think the Lord of Plagues, Lord Drippy, I think he's 100 points, so I could pull them up, but that's still, I'm 20 points over, and there's no way to reduce, you know what I mean? So because the point values are far less granular than they used to be, I think it's going to be much harder to hit these, specific 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 point things. So I don't know. I'm going to have to look into it more. Again, this is all, I'm glad that they're doing this because a lot of people were asking for it, and that's great. For me, I'm still a little like, I don't know if I'm even going to bother because it seems like a lot of extra math. And if it would have been a situation where you paid per guy, minimum is 30, or let's say minimum is 10, unit in a unit, and maximum is 30, but they cost this much each, how hard is that for math? That's not hard at all. I don't know why they didn't do it that way. If you know in the comments, I'd like you to tell me because it doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's based off of the South Coast GT rules, from what I understand. And they kind of had these pools and all that stuff. I didn't understand it then, and I still don't understand it now. Like, why aren't Gores 8 points each? Why are they 80 for 10 and 160 for 12? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why, just because you have a couple more, you immediately have to bump up to the next multiple of 10? That doesn't, to me, that doesn't sit well, and I kind of don't like that. Otherwise, I do really like the book. I think there's a lot of great stuff in here. Like I said, the first two sections kind of blowing my socks off. Lots of cool, besides the imagery and some stories and things like that, there's also just great battle plans, tons of them. If you've been kind of like, well, I've been playing the battle plans out of the original book a lot, or if you've just been playing, I go over and try to kill you and you try to kill me, there's a ton of stuff in here. Again, open and narrative play. From what I understand, there's even good battle plans, I believe. Yeah, in pitch, there's battle plans for the matched play and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on in here. If you're into Age of Sigmar, this is pretty much an auto buy. You really want to get this. It's $25 American. A lot of places you can get a discount. I did from my local shop because that's what they do with Games Workshop. Seriously, like I bought the Chaos tome or whatever, which was also soft cover, thicker than this considerably, and it was $33. To me, that felt like a giant waste of money because it was basically just all the War Scrolls that are in the app. And I could have just looked them up from there, and I didn't really get much else. There were no battle plans in there. It just wasn't much that was useful in that. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like a great buy if you're into Age of Sigmar, or if you've been staying away from Age of Sigmar because you're like, well, yeah, but points. I really like points. Well, here you go. You and your friends can start doing that, and it's great. That you have that ability now. If you are just like, I want to find out more stuff to do, maybe my gaming is turning a little stagnant, or you've been thinking about Age of Sigmar, but you're like, I don't know, 4 pages of rules sounds like a little janky. Yeah. This is the thing you want to go with. So other people who've been buying it, like I said, it's been out almost a week at this point. In the comments, let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you think about that points thing. I'm just glad that they're doing this. From what I understand, from their most recent earnings report for the quarter, earnings are for Age of Sigmar are like at 30% of their sales, which in comparison to the way it was before Age of Sigmar, Fantasy was like at around 17. So it seems to be doing well. And I know that they seem to be pushing more into it. There's the big summer campaign. If you haven't heard about that, take a look on the app if you're interested. You can play at your local stores and change the history of the Age of Sigmar. So if you're interested, you should definitely look at it. I think it's a great buy, and I'm super glad I got my copy.